You're listening to the ESP, the European Skeptics Podcast, an independent weekly show set out to bring you news, interesting topics and interviews with people mostly from Europe, building bridges and breaking down language barriers to show the world how active and awesome the skeptical movement is in the region. This is episode 502. I'm your host, András Pintér, and joining me for the show is my co-host, Pontus Böckman. Sia!
Hey son, how are you, András? What time zone is this?
This is
we had a little bit of confusion earlier, but it's all sorted, all good.
Yeah. Thanks to you. The confusion was thanks to me. the resolution of it was thanks to you. Yeah, so I came a little early to the UK to visit my sisters before I head up to Manchester to attend the very last QED ever.
Oh, exciting.
So looking forward to meeting all those lovely people. Can't wait. So how about you? Are you prepared to
I'm packing and preparing and panicking a little bit, but I'm looking forward to this a lot. This is going to be a fantastic time, I am quite sure.
What's the panicking about?
Well, the things needs to be organized. That we are going to do a live recording of the show with Brian and Claire.
Yeah.
That's at 3:10 on Saturday afternoon in the UK time. It will be live streamed, I think. So you can check out that. And so we need to have something to talk about. I have some ideas, but not really done there. And then, of course, it's the Skeptic Camp to deliver on Friday, which I have, I've done the presentation. Now I just have to find what to say to it. But it'll be fine. I'm sure it'll be fine.
Well, okay. This year I haven't prepared anything because I didn't make it to the final selection of the Skepticam talks. So even if someone dropped out and I was asked, I couldn't sit in for for anyone. So I'm just going to be sitting and listening to all of you guys.
You're free to enjoy all the fantastic talks that will go on there and mine.
Yeah, we'll definitely do that. All right, but before we head to Manchester and get into all that, we do have a show for this week for our listeners as well, which is supposed to come out on the day prior to QED, which means that on the day of Skepticamp. So if you are traveling to Manchester, you will probably have enough time to download the episode and listen to it before you arrive.
Yeah, so, listen on it on the train or wherever, however you horse and carriage. I don't know how you get to QED, but whatever works. Bring your little. But
if you come with a time machine, specifically a TARDIS, for example, or a spacecraft or anything, please come and see us because we want to see that. Make yourself known to us because we're absolutely fascinated by that stuff. And we would be more than happy to promote your brilliant equipment as well. Well, if you arrive on it, it will probably draw a lot of attention already, but
okay.
Right. You know what I mean. Okay, so let's start this week's episode with the usual segment that is called TWISH, or This Week in Skeptical History. And I'm pretty sure that everyone agrees that this week has to be about marking a bittersweet moment in skeptical history, which is the final gathering of QED Question, Explore, Discover. It is the UK's preeminent skeptical conference, but it seems to be coming to a close. And it will be held, as we mentioned earlier, between the 25th and 26th of October 2025. So this weekend. But I'd like to honour QED's story by looking back at some of the highlights and reflect on what this closing chapter means for the skeptical community, because I think it has played a very important role in the international skeptic movement. So, just a brief history. QED was launched in 2011 in Manchester, organised by Merseyside Skeptics and Greater Manchester Skeptic Society. I think at the beginning it wasn't, but later they brought to life a joint venture that was called Northwest Skeptical Events, Ltd. From the start, the mission was to bring together science communicators, skeptics, critical thinkers, bloggers, podcasters, and curious members of the public in a festival-style 2-day celebration of reason, inquiry, and community. And boy, what a success it has become. Over the years, QED grew, matured, and became a fixture on the calendar of skeptics, not only in the UK, but far beyond that. The attendance is usually around 600. I think I remember someone saying that the peak was 650 back in 2016, but I wouldn't be surprised if this year's event was a little bit higher than that, because everyone wants to be there for the last time.
It is sold out. It is sold out.
Yeah, but you can still watch it with a streaming ticket. So it's much cheaper, and you can enjoy everything from the comfort of your home. However, one of the greatest things about QED is the personal touch of it and how you get to meet all those people. So, in 2025, the conference will be held for the last time, with the website proclaiming, one last time, we're going out on a high.
I don't know, do you have to bring your own drugs, or what do they mean?
No,
or will they be supplied when you're there?
I think alcohol will be served at the bar, just as usual. And I have an assumption to make about the level of consumption as well, which might be record high. A lot of people will just not be willing to leave during the night. I'm pretty sure that everyone will try to stay up as late as possible. So on Sunday morning, they put out those messages on the main screen regarding how miracle cures on hangovers don't work. I'm afraid this will hit people very hard this time. I have a feeling.
Yeah. But take care, people. Make sure that you make it for the Sunday morning as well, because there's always a lot of good things happening. Yeah, take care.
Yeah. So the first QED was in February 2011, but that was an event where another special thing happened, and attendees took part in the Global 1023 campaign, the homeopathy overdose stunt. That was like a special thing about that. And over the years, the speakers included international superstars like Steven Novella, Jimal Khalili, Simon Singh, and others. And they brought in the Occam Awards as well. I think it was from 2012 onwards that QED became home to the UK Skeptical Communities Awards for outstanding work in promoting nonsense for the Rusty Razor, and for outstanding work in promoting actual science and going against pseudoscience and all kinds of nonsense. And that is the Occam Award.
Yeah. Well, we should say also that the award is presented at QED, but it's not by QED. It's from the Skeptic magazine.
Yeah, it's the magazine The Skeptic, and we are very proud to say that we are among those who got the award in 2017. Well, that was a bit of a surprise.
It was indeed, really.
To all of us, but we were very happy about that, and we've been trying to live up to that ever since. And I'd like to mention that we didn't get the Rusty Razor. It was the Occam Award that we got. Yeah, so just it's an important distinction to make. So many of us have come across certain topics that probably never would have otherwise entered their scope. Like, for example, when I first heard about body farms and why they're necessary for forensic science, and when it comes to things like pseudo-archaeology, those have been discussed as well. But many social issues as well, from overcrowded prisons in the UK to how we can try to tackle the advent of misinformation and political disinformation as well. So everything. So basically, it's a special tool set that you come home with every year after QED that you've acquired through interacting with experts in all kinds of different fields. And one thing that brings us all together is our love for science and appreciation for critical thinking and skepticism. So it hasn't only been just lectures and panels. It became a place where skeptics met each other, swapped ideas, collaborated, networked, and really built friendships. So I think we can all say that we have met people with whom we have become friends since. There is a bit of party atmosphere of reason as well, but that is not what we come together for. It's the whole experience. And I'd like to mention the inclusivity and how the reach has been broadening as well. Not only the program expanded beyond UK-centric voices and issues, because with the inclusion of more media and podcast folks, more social and communication aspects of skepticism, but the tiny details they pay a lot of attention to as well, like social situations and social awareness of people around you not necessarily being the same way as you are, and acknowledging that in small but very significant ways, like putting out gender pronouns and all that, and making everyone know that you are happy to talk to them, whoever they are, or that please be very patient with me because this is the first time that I attend this. So these are the things, and the way they put together everything from the actual events in the different rooms all the way to the little leaflets that you carry around with you all the time. That attention to detail is almost unmatched. So I haven't come across that in any other event. And there's something really moving about it being the last time. For many, it will be a bit of a last chance together with hundreds of like-minded people in person. Well, there will still be events out there like the upcoming European Skeptics Congress that we might be talking in a bit more detail about in the next couple of weeks. But it really is unique. It's a closing of a chapter in not only UK, but European and world skepticism as well.
No, so I wonder, Anders, which one was your first QED? Because we've been to a lot of them, both of us.
2012 was my first, and
2012.
I have had to skip a couple. I think I had to skip 2, probably. Yeah. But yeah, most of them I attended. Right. Since then, this has always been the highlight of my year.
Yeah, I met Marsh in 2013 at the European Skeptics Congress in Stockholm, which was my first skeptical conference at all. And he convinced me that I should go to QED. I hadn't heard about QED. So 2014 was my first QED, and I haven't missed one since. It's been fantastic to be there year after year, meeting all these people. And I will miss it. But as we said before, there will be some news very shortly about the European Skeptics Congress, and we hope to at least bring some of this spirit over to the European Skeptics Congress from next year and on. But too early to say now. There will be some news very, very soon.
Yeah, but just to round up this commemoration of the last 14 years or so, this year's conference, I believe, will serve as both a celebration and a commemoration. And especially for us, the European Skeptics podcast, because we've gathered a lot of people around the podcast through QED. That's how we met Annika as well, if you all remember that, and each other as well. So without QED, this podcast would not be here. No. And this is why I thought it's important to mention that. And we will have a live recording session, as we mentioned earlier. So come along, say hi to us, and let's celebrate this last time together. Actually, if you come and talk to us, why don't you bring along your memories? Talk about the speaker whose talk transformed how you think. How the laughter at the gala dinner, the casual conversations over tea that turned into a collaboration changed the way that you approach skepticism. Or if you're attending this final one for the first time, then savor it, because this is absolutely, this will blow your mind. The sessions will be rich, but some of the magic comes from the hallways, the chatter, the informal conversations, the shared, we are all curious, we are all questioning kind of atmosphere, but in a very friendly way. So yeah, let's go and enjoy it together and keep talking about it for the rest of our lives, because this has been a good run.
Yes, indeed.
All right. We do have some news as well to share with our listeners, so let's move on to that segment.
Yeah, so pretty often we use the conversation as a source. Their stories are usually rational, science-based, and very interesting as well. The content is created by professional editors working in collaboration with academics. And as they say on their website, they want to turn knowledge and insights into easy-to-read articles and make them accessible to the general public. Also, the content is free, and it's free also to republish under Creative Commons license, which I think is very generous and very good. It's a good site. But once in a while, certain articles slip through that, in my humble opinion, are a little bit questionable. And one such article from earlier this month is called, quote, "The Spiritual and Emotional World of Pub Psychic Nights," end quote. And there's nothing wrong with that topic or the title as such, because it's quite legit to look into communities with French beliefs in order to understand them better and know what's going on. And so it appears that these psychic pub nights are organized a little bit like skeptics in the pub. Like-minded people who meet up to socialize, and according to the authors of this article, the attendees are mostly belonging to a very specific demography. It's at least, they say, 95% female and often working class and maybe marginalized women going to these. And that is sort of a bit of a problem, because that hints that these people may be a little bit vulnerable for charlatans, to be honest. But anyway, they show up and they attend readings, and they're asking self-appointed psychics to answer questions about the spirit world. Not terribly expensive at all. I mean, it may be just £5 or so, maybe £25 in some cases. And then, of course, you have to pay for your drinks, but it's not a money-grabbing scheme. But what the article describes is happening on these occasions is very typical cold reading sessions. Not much different from psychic Sally Morgan or people like that that I call charlatans. So the authors of this article have been to these meetings, and they describe some distressing moments, such as when a teenage girl is crying over her lost baby. A sister is being informed that her brother, who had violently taken his own life, had a message for her. And there was a male medium telling a woman that she was being followed by a sex demon. This is not harmless stuff. And many participants described themselves as being hooked by this. That's the word they were using. The nights helped them to, quote, manage grief and the uncertainty of modern life, end quote. And here's what I think the article is not taking fully the responsibility that it should take. It says, quote, "Our findings suggest that pub psychic nights are becoming a meaningful feature of contemporary British spirituality," end quote. And then it says that, quote, "These events create opportunities to ask existential questions about life, death, love, and the hereafter outside the boundaries of formal religious institutions and long-term commitment," end quote. I don't think that is not critical enough at all. Keeping people's hope up to get in touch with near and dear ones who are dead, that's not beneficial. It interrupts the grieving process, and it can be very, very harmful. Making up nonsense messages from the dead, whether the psychic knows that they're making them up or just thinks that they're talking to the dead, but making those nonsense messages up is not casual entertainment or something that should be taken lightly. Susan Gerbic calls these people grief vampires, and I think that's a very good word for it. It's
very fitting.
Profiting, whether it is monetarily, doesn't seem to be that much in this case, but you profit from the exposure you get and the recognition you get if it's not monetarily. So I strongly feel that the conversation should not promote this as a benign thing. I really think they should know better, and normally they do. But I must say it was an interesting article, and now I know about psychics in the pub. I wasn't aware of that had happened, but apparently it is pretty common. It isn't widely advertised. It's usually local settings, maybe not even on social media. You put up paper, what do you call that? Lappar.
Lappar.
You put up local advertisements at the local pub and stuff, so people may not hear about it outside the actual community.
Oh yeah, just hand out notes.
Yeah, exactly.
Those things. Okay.
Leaflets is the word.
Leaflets, yeah. Okay. Lapar.
Lapar means leaflet, so now you know.
Okay.
Roughly, it's not exactly. So.
Word by word, I am learning, and we all are learning Swedish here. Okay. Great, but this might be that they are trying to fly under the radar. This might be for fear of skeptics turning up as well. Mm-hmm. After all, skeptics are very used to going to the pub, right?
So. Yeah. They're probably sitting in the pub next door, not knowing what's going on.
Yeah. Giving a talk on psychics and grief vampires. Yeah.
Yeah.
Very nice. Okay. Speaking of skeptics, in skeptical circles in the German-speaking world, all eyes are now on this year's contest for the most spectacular case of pseudoscience, the annual award known as Das Goldene Brett vorm Kopf, which is the golden board in front of the head, and the organizers, the Gesellschaft für kritisches Denken, or the Society for Critical Thinking, together with the award's initiator, have announced the 3 finalists for the 2025 prize. So exciting. The actual award ceremony will be happening on the 25th of October, so by the time the next episode comes out, we will know who the winner is. But just to wrap up what the award is about, the Golden Board is given to the individual, group, or organization that has, over the past year, most spectacularly promoted unscientific ideas by broad public reach, criticism, resistance, commercial interest, high impact radius, and actual danger potential. In short, among the worst examples of anti-scientific, conspiracy-laden, or pseudoscientific behavior. So, the selection process began with a public nomination phase, which led to more than 170 proposals for this year's award. So, that's quite spectacular, I believe. But we mustn't forget that there are almost 100 million German-speaking people in Europe, so that is the scope within which people were handing in proposals. So, from these nominations, a specialist jury made up of the board of the Gesellschaft für kritisches Denken, the award initiator, and the year's laudators selected the finalists. The selection criteria were explicitly the following: degree of absurdity, resistance to criticism, commercial interest, geographical reach, like the action radius of it, pseudoscientific character, and danger potential. And the finalists that have been announced for the 2025 Golden Board Award are in an alphabetical order. The first is the Austrian industrialist Christian Beer with his organization Einheit.at, and this association, founded during the coronavirus pandemic, positions itself as trying to, quote-unquote, unify vaccinated and unvaccinated people. So brought them under one umbrella of some sorts. That umbrella could easily be vaccination. According to critical reports, it maintains close ties to the so-called Corona-Querdenker movement and disseminates scientifically untenable claims regarding carbon dioxide, climate change, and other conspiratorial themes. So it's not only vaccination, anti-vaccination, but it looks like something that has a very high danger potential that was mentioned earlier. The second finalist is the German podcast Hoss und Hopf, hosted by finance influencers Kiarash Hossenpour and Philipp Hopf, with over 430,000 YouTube followers. And the podcast has come under criticism for spreading false information, conspiracy narratives on immigration and climate, and scientifically ungrounded claims about minerals and slack in the human body. So that seems like a very large geographical reach as well, or at least a very large audience that they have. And with all that being spread, it really has a danger potential as well. And the third finalist is the self-styled shaman, Mariana M., or Amela, also described by authorities as a criminal figure wanted under a European arrest warrant. So
haven't we heard about her before? I think we mentioned her before.
I think we have, yeah. So according to investigations, the group led by Amela defrauded people across Austria, Germany, and Switzerland using a so-called ritual and esoteric fraud amounting to around 10 million euros in losses. So it's going to be a very tough choice for the award committee, I'm pretty sure, because these all are people who should be stopped. So what happens next? The prize ceremony will take place on the 25th of October at the Stadtsaal in Vienna, which is the city hall. At the event, the winner of the main award will be announced. In addition, there will be a public choice prize and a lifetime achievement prize of the Golden Board for persistent pseudoscientific actions.
You don't want to win that.
You don't want to win that. But unfortunately, those who do will probably protest it, or otherwise just won't care. Because if they had cared, they would have stopped spreading nonsense anyway. Hosted by physicist and science slam moderator Bernhard Weingartner, along with an entertaining program including theatrical sketches and science-related experiments, the evening promises to be both critical and entertaining. So go along, if you can. With these 3 strong finalists this year, the 2025 Golden Board contest highlights how communities dedicated to critical thinking are calling out unscientific narratives, conspiracy discourse, and pseudoscientific exploitations. Stay tuned for the actual finalists announcement.
All right. Okay, so with the celebration of episode 500, we are a little bit slightly behind when it comes to news, but we have to bring up the fact that yet another European country is slipping over to the dark side.
Aye.
The recent elections in Czechia ended with a win for a right-wing populistic party that will likely form the new government in coalition with a few others. So Andrej Babiš, I think maybe that's how it's pronounced. He is a billionaire and a populist who started out more or less as a liberal, but has gradually moved his party, which is called ANO, which means yes, apparently. They have been moving further and further to the right and to populism. One thing that is worrying for us outside of Czechia, for instance, is that Babiš has indicated that he wants to stop all support to Ukraine. So, not optimal, I think. ANO, the party, got almost 35% of the votes. That's 80 seats in the parliament. And Andrej Babiš will try to form a government with a party called Freedom and Direct Democracy, SPD, which is an anti-immigration party that won almost 8% of the votes, or 15 seats. And a new right-wing group called the Motorists, which received almost 7%, which is 13 seats at So, Motorists Party, talk about a one-topic party. But if I understand it correctly, they focus on car ownership, opposition to combustion engine phase-out across the European Union, and also they are an anti-environmental care party, if you put it that way. Anyway, ANO, the SPD, and the Motorists now control 108 of the 200 seats in Parliament, so it looks like they are going to be able to form a government. And how bad is this? Well, you know that you're in trouble when Viktor Orban is the first to congratulate you on your country's election. So this is what he wrote on X when the results were known. Quote, "Truth has prevailed. Andrej Babiš has won the Czech parliamentary elections with a convincing lead. A big step for the Czech Republic, a good move for Europe. Congratulations, Andrej!" Exclamation point. End quote. So, no, I don't think we should congratulate anybody on this result. As I've said many times before, we have said this, is that populistic parties and politicians are almost per definition anti-rational and anti-science, since they always pander to whatever people want to hear, which is why they get elected. So they don't care about the truth. They just say what people are longing to hear, and then people vote for them and get the power. And so that when populists take over, it's always bad news. We see it in the US, of course, also in Europe, in many countries, Hungary, Italy, Slovakia, other places. There are strong populist movements in France and the UK, and in other countries too. And now, again, we see it in Czechia. Bad news for everyone who believes that policies should be driven by rationality and science and real facts, rather than opportunistic wishful thinking.
Yeah. Yeah, speaking of wishful thinking and, well, opportunism, that is what a lot of car manufacturers do as well, especially when it comes to the environmental impact of their products. It's not a secret to anyone regularly listening to the show that I'm fascinated by electromobility, and I'm a great supporter of electric vehicles. Being an owner of one as well, I try to follow closely what the latest news are on that field. And I've always been in two minds about plug-in hybrid vehicles because they are marketed as the best solution because it combines the best of two worlds, the internal combustion engines with the electric motors, and you can use it in full electric mode, and that will definitely bring down your carbon dioxide emissions and all that. However, a new analysis has raised serious doubts about that, the environmental credentials of plug-in hybrid vehicles, which highlights the potential policy and consumer implications that might need to be considered. So, a report by the advocacy group Transport and Environment found that plug-in hybrid electric vehicles, or PHEVs, emit nearly as much carbon dioxide in real-world driving as standard petrol cars. While laboratory tests suggested that the plug-in hybrids are around 75% less polluting, the real-world data from 800,000 cars registered between 2021 and 2023 show only a 19% reduction in carbon dioxide. It's significantly lower than it was hoped to be the case compared to conventional petrol or diesel cars. So why this is important is because the EU's policies are built on that premise. So the EU sets carbon dioxide emission quotas for car manufacturers through Regulation EU 2019/631. It targets a fleet average of 93.6 grams carbon dioxide per kilometer for new cars emitted from 2025 to 2029, which is a 15% reduction compared to 2021 levels. But a fleet average is the key word here. So with car manufacturers bringing out plug-in hybrid electric vehicles instead of electrifying the whole lineup, it's a way for them to bring down their quotas in order to avoid having to pay fines, because manufacturers who exceed their specific targets must pay fines of €95 per gram per kilometer excess for each vehicle registered. And that is a significant amount. So obviously, car manufacturers would like to avoid that.
So they cheat.
So they base their carbon dioxide quotas on the laboratory test results instead of real-world data. Yeah. So this is how they cheat. But apparently, this is a massive cheat because the laboratory test suggested 75% less pollution, and apparently real-life data shows only 19%. That's huge.
It reminds me of when diesel cars were supposed to be the new environmental-friendly thing. It was 15 years ago or so, or a little bit more. Yeah. And it turned out they cheated on the tests. They programmed the cars to do differently when they were tested than what they did when they were on the road.
Yeah, exactly. So, that was Volkswagen's mishap.
It was them, but they were not alone. Volkswagen
they were not alone, as it turned out.
Everybody was doing it turns out.
Yeah. So the key findings were that the analysis shows that the real-world carbon dioxide emissions from plugins in 2023 were about 4.9 times higher than their lab-tested values. The reason for that seems to be that there was an overestimate of how much driving is done in electric mode, because that certain utility factor assumed by manufacturers was around 84%. So, in real-life situations, people could potentially use their cars on an electric-only mode. But the actual electric mode driving was only about 27%. And there are several reasons for that. People are just not willing to do that much charging. Some of the cars are not capable of high-power charging, so you would need a lot of time to recharge them. And the other thing is that even when running in so-called electric mode, the internal combustion engine still operated for almost 1/3 of the distance because the electric motor alone wasn't strong enough. So if you build in a powerful enough electric motor, that will consume much higher amounts of energy that will give you a much shorter electric range.
I'm wondering, wouldn't people notice this? I mean, owners of the cars, because they would realize that the fuel consumption is more than they expect.
Yeah, but a lot of people don't care. For example, in Hungary, it's not necessarily the case in all the cities anymore. But for example, in Budapest, it's still the case that with a fully electric battery vehicle or a plug-in hybrid, you can get something that we call a green license plate. And a green license plate will allow you to park free anywhere in the parking zones in Budapest. And it will be changed. Plug-in hybrid electric vehicles will not get a green license plate, I believe, from the beginning of 2026 onwards. So that distinction will be made, and this is based on real-world data. But this has been the largest ever study published on that. And there is, and this is shocking, that the report also estimates that 4 major car maker groups may have avoided more than 5 billion euros in fines between 2021 and 2023 by using the optimistic emissions data. So, yeah, PHEVs have been widely promoted as a bridge technology, allowing drivers longer distances with electric power while still having combustion engine backup. But they don't deliver substantial emissions reductions, apparently. So the policy and industry context should be considered as well. As the European Commission is pressing ahead with its ban on new internal combustion engine car sales from 2035, these findings are very significant. And at the same time, some member states and manufacturers are pushing for more flexibility, citing the plug-in hybrid electric vehicles as a compromise. But they are not a compromise. They are a non-solution. So there is a difference between a compromise and a non-solution. So critics say that given the gap between promised and actual emissions, leaning on PHEVs may weaken climate action, and it's a valid argument. So we don't know what happens next. Regulators will have to take this into account, but a definite recalculation of emissions will be in order.
Indeed, yeah.
Okay, that brings us to the end of the news round, which means that we are about to find out who's been really wrong lately, or really right.
Yeah, it was a while since we had a really right, and apropos a recent news item, I would like to bring up a topic that the two of us may not talk enough about, since we are both dudes, and because of that, we are not always too aware about women's health issues, or we don't focus on them enough. But before we go to the good news and the really right, let's start with some concerning news item, the one that made me think about this a little bit. Midwives obviously fill an extremely important role in society and in healthcare, and most of them, I believe, are very competent and very good and know what they're doing. But there are exceptions, and there are trends to romanticize women's health, often promoting going back to nature and discarding scientific advice and progress and evidence-based best practices and things like that. Especially concerning is the promotion of so-called wild pregnancies or free birthing. So this is where women are encouraged to give birth with as little help as possible, like in the quote-unquote good old days. Maybe you go out in the woods, and I don't know what you do, but
and you had a very high chance of just losing your baby,
and your life, because if we go back a bit, giving birth was the single most dangerous thing you could do as a woman. So this is not something you should take lightly, also.
Yeah.
One extreme example is a Swedish influencer called Rakel Brotem, who goes by the name of Yoga Girl. She encourages women to trust, quote-unquote, nature's instincts and forego any help at all when giving birth. That's terrible, really. A less extreme example is a Swedish midwife called Agneta Bergenheim, and that was the news item I read this week, really. She was now ordered by the Swedish Health and Social Care Inspectorate, the IVO, to stop helping women giving birth at home. She can't do that anymore. And the decision was triggered because she had helped and encouraged a woman to give twin birth at home when twin births are considered very high risk and should always be done at a hospital.
Yeah.
It went well in this case, so that's fine. But it is risky, and you need to have access to specialists if things go wrong. And they can, and they sometimes do. And then you don't want to be out in the woods or even at home. But Bergenheim has stated that she will ignore this ruling. She will continue her practice as before. And that's bad news. But let's focus on the good guys here instead. I mentioned influencers before, and there are also good ones out there. There is a Swedish Instagram account called Kvinnokliniken, and that's Swedish, but it means, translates roughly to the Women's Health Clinic. Mm-hmm. It's run by 2 medical doctors who constantly and tirelessly post evidence-based facts and debunk myths about women's health issues. In 2023, their Instagram account got the Swedish Skeptics Enlightener of the Year award, but I don't think we have ever mentioned them on the show, so I thought this was a good reason to do it. Mm-hmm. They are continuing, they are still doing this, and they're doing an excellent job. They're being a counterweight to all the woo out there, and because of that, they get this week's award for being really right. I will put the link to their Instagram account in the show notes.
Great. So well done, and this is well deserved. So thank you very much for that find, Pontus. Mm-hmm. And we should be focusing more on promoting the good guys than bashing the bad ones.
We can find time for both.
Yeah, let's do that. But come on, trusting that the instinct of nature. You know what the instinct of nature is that kill everything off that's not fit enough to survive. So
exactly.
Do you really want to take that chance?
No,
I don't think so.
No.
So humanity has grown far further than that, and we have grown to be able to help each other. And you know where the best help you can get? At a hospital. So, yeah. Okay, so moving on to the final part of the show, which means that we are concluding this episode with the usual quote. And I brought a quote from someone who's of the highest esteem among the science communicators in Italy. Unfortunately, he's not with us anymore, but he lived up to a very nice and high age and influenced generations of Italians into going into science and developing critical thinking skills. And I'm talking about Piero Angela.
Yeah.
So he's still a big household name in Italy, I can tell you that. This is what I chose from many, many of his wonderful quotes. Science has this beauty. It unites generations because its general rules do not change like do fashions from one generation to another.
That's right. The principles are the same. I mean, we should say methods develop and change, but the principles are the same.
Exactly. The general rules. Yeah.
General rules.
Because it works, bitches. Well, that is a sentence that Piero Angelo probably have never said. That it works, bitches.
That quote is from Anders, and he didn't come up with it.
No, I didn't. I stole it. Well, that's another thing in science, that you recycle ideas, you recycle things that seem to work, and you just get rid of those that don't. And that's important. What's important is how to make that distinction. That's an important skill. All right, but that brings us to the end of episode 502. Thank you very much, Pontus.
QED, here I come!
Yes. So by the time this goes out, we'll be on our way to QED. No, actually, we will both be in Manchester by then. Okay.
Yeah.
So see you soon, my friend.
Cheers!
And many thanks to our listeners as well for tuning in. Please keep doing so, and do find us in person if you're at QED. But until next week, goodbye.
Hej då!
Vislat. This has been your ESP experience. The show is produced and recorded by TheESP.eu. Join us again next time, but until then, please send your feedback and comments to info@TheESP.eu. We would also love to hear your ideas and suggestions regarding topics, and if you have any skeptical news from any European country, we're always eager to hear about them. If you have an upcoming local event or an organization to promote, please don't hesitate to let us know, as we are more than happy to help. All music in the program was written and performed by Keisha J. Gray and George Robb and is used with their permission. Please check out our webpage for show notes and archive material at theesp.eu, Follow us on Blue Sky at theesp.bsky.social, like us on Facebook, or support our work on patreon.com/theesp. And don't forget to spread the word by sharing our content with others.
I don't know how you can believe.
The prize is given out. So what's happening?
No worries. I'm here.
You're just testing something? Okay.
No, I have camera problems, but don't worry.
Oh, okay. All right. So it will be...
With the celebration of episode 500, we are a little bit slightly behind. I will say that again. Rakel Protein. I can't even pronounce it.
Protein.
Rakel Protein